So today we're going to look at intro to trig ratios. Don't forget today's date, which is the 27th. What type of triangle were they talking about in that intro video? A right triangle. Okay, we only can use trig functions if we have a right triangle. Now from that right triangle, we should know the parts of, like what the sides are. So the side across from the 90-degree angle is your hypotenuse. And what are the other two sides called? Legs. Okay, we talked about this in the last unit as well. So if I call my triangle ABC, we're going to use some other information in a second. Did anyone catch what the three trig ratios were? The names of the three trig ratios from that video? Sine, cosine. Did you catch the last one? Starts with a T, tangent. Sine, cosine, and tangent. Now the video told you how to set up the ratio, whether you caught it or not. But for sine, it is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So the opposite over the hypotenuse. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Cosine is adjacent, and we talked about the what adjacent meant in the last unit. What does adjacent mean? Next to. So adjacent over hypotenuse. Does anyone remember what the tangent was from the video? It was opposite over adjacent. Now Micah asked a good question. He's like, well, which one's opposite? It depends on what angle we are referencing. So for instance, if I am referencing angle B, if that's the angle that I'm looking at, what side is opposite? AC. We're talking about a side. So if I'm looking at angle B, AC is the opposite side. I know what the hypotenuse is. That doesn't change. What would be the adjacent side? BC. Okay, it's the side right next to it. What if, though, I'm talking about angle A, and I'm looking at angle A? What side is opposite? Okay, so in that case, this one would be the opposite, and which one would be the adjacent? AC. So it depends on what angle you're referencing. The hypotenuse is always the hypotenuse, the right angle is always the right angle, and your right angle will never be your reference angle. There was an acronym they gave you in that video. Do you remember what that acronym was? SOHCAHTOA. This is the easiest way to remember how to set up your ratios. Okay, so SOHCAHTOA. And it literally tells you, it spells it out for you. So is the sine, and it equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. So literally what I have up here. So the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. What do you think this means?
Cosine.
Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse.
Tangent is equal to opposite.
Good. The tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. If you write cosine on the top of all of your papers, like as you're going through these problems, it'll make it a whole lot easier. So you don't necessarily have to remember this part, but I remember SOHCAHTOA. Okay, remember that acronym. So far, so good? Yes? No? Maybe? All right. We're going to write each trig ratio as a fraction and a decimal, rounded to the nearest hundredth. Now, before we even look at a picture, ratio. What is a ratio? What is a ratio?
A number compared to another number.
Good. A comparison of two numbers. So it is a fraction. Okay? All you are doing is setting up a fraction. It's a comparison of two numbers. Okay, based on the three problems I just gave you, what is my reference angle? What angle am I looking at?
The right angle.
Based on these three problems, what angle? The R. Okay, so R is my reference angle. From R, I want you to label, I want everyone to do this for right now. You're going to label all the sides before we do anything else. Okay, you have opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse to label. The hypotenuse should be the easiest. Which one's that? RS. Okay, so label the hypotenuse. I want everyone to do this for now. And once we get good at this, then you don't have to do it anymore. If R is my reference angle, what side is opposite of R? TS. Which means RT would be the adjacent. If you can label, the setting up part is a lot easier. If you don't know which sides are opposite, the adjacent and the hypotenuse, your setup's going to be wrong. Everyone okay with how we labeled? Okay, so if I start with the sine of R, sine is the so. What two pieces of information do I need for sine? The opposite and the hypotenuse. So the opposite is 12. What's the hypotenuse? 13. Can I reduce that ratio? No, but I can make it a decimal to the nearest hundredths place. What do you get as your decimal? .92. Okay. What two pieces of information do I need for cosine? The adjacent and the hypotenuse. So my adjacent is 5. The hypotenuse is 13. Can I reduce that at all? So can I reduce the fraction? Oh, no. But what is my answer rounded to the nearest hundredth? You should have gotten 0.38. because the next number after 8 is 4, so it keeps the 8 the way it is. What two pieces of information do I need for tangent? The opposite, which is 12, over the adjacent, which is 5. Can I reduce this ratio? No. You can make it a proper fraction or a mixed number, but you don't need to do that. We're leaving it as an improper fraction, but if you can reduce it and simplify it, you need to. What do you get when you divide 12 or 5 into 12? 2.4. Questions on any of that? Okay, I'm going to give you another one. Okay, either you can work by yourself if you want to, or your group. I want you to identify the reference angle you need. I want you to label the sides, and I want to see if you can come up with the ratio and the decimal. Okay, for all three of those problems. If you need to work with someone, you can. Okay, let's see how we did. What is my reference angle for number 1? B. So someone tell me what the opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse are. Mackenzie. Before we do that, let's label the sides. So which side is opposite? What side is adjacent? And the hypotenuse is the last one, right? Okay, so for sine, what two sides are you using? So your opposite and your hypotenuse, so you should have 24 over 25. 24 divided by 25 is 0.96 or 0.96. Do we get that? Okay. What's my reference angle for number 2? A. So we're going to have to switch things up. So real quick, I'm going to jump down to number 3 since it's the same reference angle and it's the same sides here. What do I need for tangent? I need the opposite and the adjacent. So 24 over 7. 24 divided by 7. 3.43. 3.43. Now for number 2, since A is now my reference angle, I have to switch things up a bit. The hypotenuse is still the same, that doesn't change. But now what's my opposite side? The 7, that BC. And my adjacent side is the AC. Did you do that? Did you change your reference angle on the sides? Yeah? So for cosine, what do I need? Adjacent and the hypotenuse. So 24 over 25. Which means my answer is 0.96. Did you switch that up? Okay, so one thing that you need to make sure you do is you figure out what your reference angle is and label based on your reference angle. Okay, if you don't switch up your reference angle, it's going to mess up your problem. Give you the wrong answer. Questions on that part? Okay, so I need everyone to take their calculator. I'm going to move this to the side for a second, so we're just looking here. Everyone has a calculator in front of them? Okay. If you have this calculator, whether it's pink, blue, gray, whatever, it looks the same. You should see these 3 buttons, sine, cosine, and tangent. Can everyone locate sine, cosine, and tangent on their calculator? Is there anybody that can't find sine, cosine, tangent on their calculator. Okay. To find each trig ratio round to the hundredths. So for instance, I want to find the cosine of 76. You are literally, for everyone that has this calculator, you are literally just going to press cosine 76 and close your parentheses. If you have the other calculator, you're going to do 76 and then hit the cosine button. Your answer should be 0.24192 and so on. Is that, everyone see that on their calculator? You don't have that on your calculator? Okay, I'll be right there. So my answer would be 0.24. Okay, I'm going to come back to you in 1 second, Brandon. I'm going to give you guys 2 more that I want you to try. And again, we want to make sure we have the same thing on our calculator or it's going to make solving tomorrow super difficult. All right, what do we get for the sine of 8 degrees? 0.14. Did everyone get 0.14? Okay. And what about the tangent of 82?
7.12.
Good, 7.12. Oh, you can't see any of that. There we go. Questions on using your calculator and finding sine, cosine, tangent. Tomorrow we're actually going to be solving for a variable, so it's important that we can do the basics now. So we can set up sides and we can plug it into our calculator. Yeah? Okay, that's where we're going to stop.